Hello, it's Judith here and Happy New Year to everyone. I hope you had a good Christmas and I hope that the next year will be for you the year that you want it to be. And if you're watching this and it is no longer New Year, just remember you can start your new year anytime you like. So if you decide you want to make some changes, now, whenever now is for you, is okay. In fact, it's really good. So, in the next few weeks, I'm going to be talking about how we manage to get in our own way, stop ourselves from achieving the things that we want to achieve or having the life that we want to have. So we're going to be covering a number of topics, and today's is how we often let other people's opinions dictate how we feel about ourselves, sometimes known as external referencing or looking for external validation from other people. So do you find yourself constantly seeking input from others to determine how you feel about yourself, or changing your actions based upon what other people say, when actually you weren't convinced by their argument? Well, the good news is, well, not such good news really, but you're not alone. We all do it. I can remember when I was at the end of my corporate career and I'd moved into training, going out with what we in those days, and this makes me laugh now considering what I'm doing, we used to call the touchy-feely lot. So out I was for dinner with the touchy-feely lot. And this guy turned to me and said, "You know what your problem is, don't you?" And that's always a really good way to start a sentence, isn't it? Yeah, you know what your problem is? You're too externally referenced. And I said, well, that would be a really useful comment if I understood what externally referenced meant. And he said, well, you rely too much on other people's opinions. And your self-worth, your self-value is based upon what other people are thinking or saying. So there you are. So I was there. And, you know, we never, ever completely lose it, but we can be much, much more focused on how we feel about ourselves. So you can break free from this pattern. You're not stuck with it forever. You know, never, no cure is ever perfect. And we'll come back to perfection later as well. But the objective would be to start building your own sense of self-worth, of self-belief, maybe a sense of self and who you are. Because if you've been doing this for a long time, you're probably very confused about who you are. So I'm going to start by talking about the problems that being too externally referenced, as my kind friend said to me, can have. And then I'm going to give you 5 tips of how you can become less externally referenced if you feel that it is a problem for you. So, when we're externally referenced, as I said, we base our self-worth, our self-esteem on what other people are telling us. So, to start with the problems, doing that means we're on very, very shaky ground. If we're seeking external validation all the time, we're letting other people's opinions, judgments, or approval determine how we feel about ourselves. If you just think about that for a minute, how you feel about you is totally down to how other people are thinking, feeling, saying. The problem is you're going to feel amazing if somebody gives you a nice compliment. If somebody gives you a nice compliment. Maybe not if your self-esteem's really low, or you might struggle with compliments. But if somebody says something nice to you or says, oh, you did that really well, or I was impressed when you did so-and-so, that's going to give you some kind of a boost and a good feeling inside. The problem is it doesn't last. That person goes away, that event is, or whatever, is over, and you're left with yourself and how you feel about yourself. So it's not consistent. And of course, it can be negative. If somebody is in the slightest bit critical about you or what you've done, that will throw you right back down to the bottom of self-esteem, self-belief. So it's very treacherous ground to be dependent upon what other people are thinking, saying, believing. So, I'm just trying to think if there's anything more I need to say about this. Basically, we're letting other people control us and control our lives and how we are feeling about ourselves, and often trying to be the person that somebody else wants us to be, which is not good. And given that most of us interact with a fair number of people on a regular basis, you may be getting mixed messages. So, as I said earlier, you may be very confused about who you are and certainly have no clear view yourself about what you are. No sense of self. Okay, let's move on now to the tips. And the first one is start recognizing your own value. Start believing that you have a value. Break free from the need for external validation. Your value, your worth isn't based upon what other people think. It's based upon you. It's inherent within you. And it's based upon the fact that you, like all the rest of us, are a wonderfully unique human being with your own strengths and weaknesses, with skills and experience and qualities that are valuable, regardless of what anybody else thinks. And we do tend to focus on the negative, particularly if we're externally referenced, and ignore all the good stuff. That just sort of passes us by. And if you're thinking at the moment, well, I can't actually remember when I did something that I was proud of or achieved something I wanted to achieve or felt good about myself. Have a good think, because there will be some experiences, some things that happened in the past that did make you proud, did give you a sense of achievement, did tell you were, or make you feel good about yourself. If you can't find them, then start collecting them. If you genuinely are sitting there thinking, I cannot think of anything that I've ever done that I'm proud of, that gave me a sense of achievement or feeling good about myself, then start now. Each day, at the end of the day, just make a note of the things that you achieved in the day, the things that made you feel good, even if only for a moment, or the things that you feel proud about. And it doesn't matter whether they're tiny little things or great, huge, enormous things. You know, depending on where you are in terms of your mental health, just getting out of bed and having a shower and getting dressed is a huge achievement if you're suffering from depression, for instance. If you are, I don't know, another example, if you're a procrastinator and you make a huge effort to just get up and get on with whatever it is you've got to do in the day, then that's an achievement. So look for the positives in your day. Anything, any tiny little thing that you did, you know, if you just had a healthy lunch or spoke to somebody when you were out walking, tiny little thing. And it's best if you write them down, because you'll forget them again in a week because you're focusing on the negative still at the moment. Okay. So that neatly leads me on to, well, it does in my head anyway, that tip number 2, which is about becoming really aware of your own inner voice, your internal voice, and what it's saying to you. This one is really, really important, and I spend a lot of time talking to clients about this. Pay attention for a while about how you talk to yourself, because what we say to ourselves just becomes our normal and we don't think anything of it. I can remember, again, in this training environment, this was a nicer person who said to me one day, do you realise how often you call yourself stupid? And I said, well, it's always a joke. You know, if I dropped a whole load of papers on the floor or done something equally silly, I'd say, oh, you stupid person. And that's just a joke. It's not an issue. Now, at that stage, I hadn't done my NLP training and I didn't understand how important words are. But if you think about it, if you think about a friend or your child, If you constantly told them they were stupid, what do you think their belief would be? Yeah, exactly. They would believe that they were stupid, and that's what I was doing to myself. And apparently now I've started saying sorry a lot, so I've got another one to work on. As I say, we're never perfect. Okay, so is your conversation with yourself generally positive or generally negative and critical? And if it is, and you're relying on other people to boost your poor view of yourself, as I say, it's a very uneven ground for you to be using. It's very unsafe ground to be basing your view about yourself. So again, start thinking about validating yourself. Start thinking about noticing, as in tip 1, noticing when you do something really well. The next time you achieve something, however small, don't wait for the evening to write it down. Allow yourself to be proud of what you've done. Not because other people have said something good to you, but just because, I've been putting that job off for weeks and I've now done it. If that was the case, dance around the room, sing very loudly, pat yourself on the back. Do something very high energy to celebrate. Go and make yourself a cup of coffee that you don't normally have, or eat a bar of chocolate, whatever. Celebrate it and continue to celebrate each success, again, however small. If you're really struggling with this one, and it can take some time and require some practice, you could actually, when you are paying attention to how you're talking to yourself, literally write down the negative thoughts that you're thinking or words that you're saying, and pick out the worst couple, the ones that you think are things that you wouldn't say to your best friend. You wouldn't say to your worst enemy. I frequently say, we wouldn't talk to any other human being the way we often talk to ourselves inside our own heads. So pick the worst one or two. Think of something that is more positive. You're not going to go from saying I'm stupid to saying I'm a genius, because that's too big a leap. But actually, sometimes I do things really well, or, I'm not always stupid. Whatever works for you, something more positive. And each time you catch yourself saying the negative thing, then switch to the more positive. Because what's happening, because you've been doing this for a while, if it's a major problem for you, then you have developed a habit. So you're trying to break a habit, but you're also trying to break up that constant stream of criticism with some little rays of, no, actually, I did quite well there. No, I shouldn't be beating myself up. I should be patting myself on the back, which is a much gentler thing. Okay. So each time you slip into the old habit, switch as quickly as you can, as soon as you notice, to the new, more positive thing that you're going to say to yourself. And it's okay to feel proud. Many of us were taught, particularly women, as children, not to boast. So sometimes it can be quite hard to say, actually, I did a pretty good job there. I'm really proud of that. So start practicing in the privacy of your own home and your own room. But get used to saying, actually, that absolutely deserves a congratulation from me to me. Okay. What you're doing is you're trying to build up your self-esteem, you're trying to build up your self-worth, your beliefs about yourself. Because, again, if you think about it, if you were constantly criticizing a child, they would think that they were absolute rubbish, that they were absolutely, no use to anybody, of no value at all. And you wouldn't want your child to be thinking like that, and you wouldn't want to think about the kind of life they would have if they were thinking like that. So why would you do it to you? Because actually you're the most important person in your world. You're the only one absolutely guaranteed to be there from the very beginning to the very end. So start being kind and compassionate to yourself. Start recognizing your achievements and celebrating them. Okay, tip 2, sorry, long tip. Tip 3, setting personal boundaries. Now, we'll come back to this in a later video because it's quite a biggie, this one. But it is important for you to protect your own emotional space. Not everybody's opinions are valid or need to be heard or considered by you, especially if it's a negative one. Especially if it's a negative one that isn't valid. You may struggle to begin with to realise which ones are and aren't valid, but the more you grow your self-esteem and your own sense of value, the more you will recognise the negative ones that are actually often said by people who are not so confident in themselves. And so it makes them feel better to put somebody else down. Sorry, but that's what does happen sometimes. So practice setting boundaries with people, particularly those who continually undermine your self-worth or make you feel inadequate. As I say, maybe to make themselves feel better. This may mean limiting the time you spend with them, learning to say no to things you don't want to do, and sometimes even making a really hard decision of just letting go of them, letting them disappear from your orbit and having nothing more to do with them. And I have clients who've had to do that with relatives, not just friends. You need to be your own best friend. You need to be looking out for yourself. And if somebody is delighting in making you feel bad about yourself, why would you want them in your life? Okay, tip 4, shift from comparison to competition with yourself, or putting it another way, understanding the things about yourself that maybe could do with some improvement. But because you want to do it, because you believe it will make you achieve more, be a nicer person, have a better life, whatever it is you're aiming for, all of those. You are allowed to go for all of them. Comparisonitis is very, very dangerous, and social media makes it worse. If people aren't dropping hints that some disaster has happened to them, they are generally trying to show how amazing they are and what a wonderful life they've got. And of course, we all know intellectually that they're just like the rest of us, and good and bad happens. But the thing they portray online is perfection, which, as I keep saying, is impossible. I have to keep reminding myself of that. So instead of comparing yourself with other people, as you get to know yourself and as you get to support yourself and encourage yourself and develop your self-esteem, you will come across things that you're not happy about. So what can I do to make improvements? What would be a good area to work on, and how am I going to do that? Stop measuring your worth against other people. Measure it against what you are now and how you would like to be, based upon your assessment of how you are as a person. Because I'm sure anybody who's watching my video is a very nice person who's doing their very best, as we all are, to try and be a decent human being. So start reminding yourself that you are a nice person. And yeah, if you decide to make changes and you work on them and you are successful, then celebrate in some really, really powerful way that gives you that wonderful feedback that is genuine because it's yours and it fits with what's important to you. Okay, now we come to the one I've kept mentioning and in passing, and that's tip 5. Embrace your imperfection. And this is one I really struggled with when I was doing my early training. Perfection is impossible, and that's okay. I worked with a coach, one of the first coaches I ever worked with, who said, don't strive for perfection, strive for excellence. And in my old world, where we used to talk about quality isn't the best there is. You know, it isn't the most expensive or the most luxurious. quality is fit for purpose. So if you're doing a piece of work, for instance, or whatever you're doing, whether it's, working in your garden or decorating your house or doing something work-wise, make it as good as it can be and as it needs to be. Don't strive for perfection because you're going to fail continuously. Embracing your imperfections can actually make yourself more authentic and actually make you feel more confident, self-assured. Yeah, I know what's wrong with me. Wrong is perhaps the wrong word, but I know the areas I want to work on. I don't need anybody else to tell me, but I'm aware of them and I'm doing something about them. So that's okay. And the next time you make a mistake, remind yourself that it's okay not to be perfect. And in fact, even better than that, we learn by making mistakes. In NLP, we talk about there's no such thing as failure, only feedback. So if something goes horribly wrong, yes, you're going to have a moment of despair, but don't wallow in that. Come out of it and think, okay, so first of all, was it something I did that caused this disaster to happen, or was it an external circumstance? If it was an external circumstance, could I have dealt with it differently? If it was my fault, what should I have done instead? And most importantly, if I'm in a similar situation again, how would I do it differently next time? So each failure, each mistake is a learning opportunity, is a developing opportunity. It's not a reason to beat yourself up and tell yourself how useless you are. Because guess which way works best? Okay, so you are a valuable, unique, wonderful human being with all your strengths and weaknesses. And that's what makes you a unique human being, because your strengths are your strengths and your weaknesses are your weaknesses. Nobody else has the same set as you've got. You're special. So to recap, and I'm going to look at my notes just to make sure I don't forget anything. Recognize your own value. Your worth isn't or shouldn't be defined by anybody else but you. And if your worth is fairly low at the moment, you need to be thinking about how you can raise it up. Focus on that internal voice. And if it's highly critical, try to make it more positive. And part of that is changing the voice or what the voice is saying, and also celebrating any progress you're making and any achievements. Set personal boundaries. Do not let the people who are trying to bring you down to rock bottom in terms of your self-esteem have an effect on your life. Cut them out, see less of them, say no, or somehow manage what's coming at you so that it doesn't have an effect. And shift from comparing yourself to other people with comparing yourself with yourself. Am I doing better this week, this month, this year than I did last year, month, week? Have I made some changes that mean my life has improved in some way that's important to me? And embrace those imperfections, because they are what make you unique. Embrace them. It's impossible to be perfect, so why would you try? Why would you put all that effort in when you could be doing something else positive or enjoyable? Your mistakes don't or shouldn't define you. They should be an opportunity for learning and developing and growing. So, by learning to focus on your inner self, by learning to cut out or ignore those external critical voices, you'll build up a stronger self-belief, a more grounded sense of self-worth, because it's not based upon that shaky ground that can be taken away or switched from positive to negative any moment. You will be building up a firm base for your view of yourself. You don't need anybody else's approval. Your value comes from inside you. So that's it for today. As always, if you've got to the end of this video, well done and thank you. If you found these tips helpful, can you please like them, and more importantly, share them, because if you think they're going to help you, then share them with other people so that they can also benefit. If you're planning to use any of these tips, I would love it if you let me know, either personally or by posting underneath this how you're getting on. And if the job just feels too big and too overwhelming, well, then get in touch. I'll post the link for my free half-hour chat underneath this. So get in touch and we'll see how I can help you. Okay then. So that's me for this week. Have a good week. Remember to be as positive about yourself as you possibly can. And I look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye.